As you can see, my bookshelf is literally overflowing, and obviously we need another shelf. I wanted to show you guys like all the books on my bookshelf. I just thought it'd be fun. Okay, so I'm sitting on the floor and here are the books on my bookshelf. First one, Until August. I gave this, I think, like a 4 out of 10. I really love this author's writing, and I have more of his books that I thrifted. This one I just bought at the bookstore. I try not to buy new books, and I try to use the library as I can, but like sometimes, like this one just came out, and so there was like 14 people on hold before me, and so I just figured I'd buy it. I had to buy it. This one I read in the summer, and I loved it. Call Me By Your Name, and this cover is gorgeous. By Andre Asselin. I don't know how you say that, but I also spilled water on it at my job, and so now it's all icky, but that's okay. Love this book. Would definitely recommend this one, especially in the summer. Italian summer, beautiful writing. I think I marked it a little bit, so that was nice. Yeah, I really love this one actually. That one's 5 stars. Next, I bought this for myself for Valentine's Day because just coincidentally on Valentine's Day, I picked this up out of the classics at the bookstore, and I thought that's perfect, and it's so cute. It's the cutest little edition I've ever seen of a book. This one I just read the stories. It's like a collection of short stories, so I just read them every once in a while. I'm only on page 50 right now, but it has a bunch of really great authors in it with short stories about love. I also should mention that I work at a bookstore, so I get 50% off books, and it's really hard when I'm there like all week looking at books. It's really hard not to buy them. I never would buy books from the bookstore before I worked there, and now I'm like, I get 50% off, like I might as well use it. So if you're addicted to books and you want a discount, I would recommend working at the bookstore. This is Rumi, Poetries of Love. I'm a lover, what can I say? I don't know, I was recommended by a friend and I really like it. I'm halfway through. This one I also just read in like little every once in a while kind of thing, because if I read it all together it kind of starts to blur, and I don't want that to happen. I want it to be like I want it to be like a shot of tequila in a poem. Okay, and then I have The Virgin Suicides. I read this recently. Just all the themes I thought were really good themes for me. Like, there was a lot about religion, gender, like being a woman and growing up in religion and like how that affects you. And it's kind of like a mystery too, because you don't know what's gonna happen, a thriller sort of, but it's still like fiction. Really good. Definitely like 5 stars. The Old Man and the Sea. This copy I thrifted for like 49 cents or something. I love the cover too. Ernest Hemingway. Don't know what to say about this because I haven't read it, but I try to keep all the books that I haven't read on this shelf and then the ones I have read on the bottom too, but you know, we got a little overflowed. So The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I had to read this for like a women's lit class. Really loved it. Super good. I didn't really know what to expect, but definitely 5 stars. Wow, I've read a lot of good books recently. I think it's because I've like figured out what kind of books that I actually enjoy, because I used to like read books and I read a lot of like fantasy and stuff, which that was still good, but I think it just gets old after a while. And I like the more nuanced themes that like pertain to the real world instead of like dragons. Ooh, which that's fun sometimes too. But Call of the Wild, thrifted this at the same time I thrifted the other one. Haven't read it, but want to. Dante's Inferno. I actually accidentally have 2 copies of Dante's Inferno. I should have returned the other one, but I bought this at work and I was like, oh dude, it's like oh my gosh, it was $5 full price. So I probably got it for like $3. And then I went to the thrift store that same day, and then I found this one, which is like a better copy of it. And so now I have 2, so if you want one, let me know. Then I have Wuthering Heights, Emily Bronte. I love the Bronte sisters. They're amazing, as everyone probably does. But this one, I don't know why, and it's supposed to be like the best love story ever made or whatever, like written. And I can only get, I've been reading this for probably 2 years, and I can only get to page 100. I don't know. It's good. Like, I don't know what else to say. But I just like, maybe I need like an audiobook kind of version, or like it on my phone or something. Oh. And then Looking for Alaska by John Green. I thrifted this one, and I don't know, I feel like it's a modern day classic, you'd say. I haven't read it, but my mom read it. She liked it. I think it's kind of like, it's a YA, so that's a little on the fence for me, but I'm still gonna read it. Then The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I love this cover, it's gorgeous, but I started reading this one this summer, and then I just kind of never got into it, and I just kind of moved on because I started reading something else, but excited to read it. 1984. I thrifted this cover. It's gorgeous. I used to keep this one in my car for like if I ever needed a book. My mom read it. I've read, like, I started reading it and I loved it, but then I just never picked it up again, and I always think about it, how I want to read it. This one I also thrifted. 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, which is the same author I was talking about before. I really loved his writing. He did this one too. I really loved his writing. Like, it almost didn't even feel like, I feel like the best writers, you don't even notice that it's like writing. It just turns into like imagery kind of thing, and that one just flowed so well. It didn't like, it obviously had like very poetic parts and stuff and prose and stuff like that, but I never like was like, it didn't feel clunky, you know, like I was like taking breaks and then reread it and then like, what, you know, it just flowed really well. So I'm excited to read this one. I'll probably read that one soon, honestly. This one I got from a little library, free little library. The Body Keeps the Score. I honestly was surprised that I found this, but we'll see. That's another thing I love to do with books that I read and was like about, or like just books that I'm never gonna read, or books I hated or whatever. I'll just donate them to the little libraries, free little libraries. There's 3 of them in my neighborhood, which is great. So usually in the summer I'll just go on a walk and I'll hit all 3 little libraries, and then I'll find the best books and switch them out for the books that I own, and I love doing that. This one's called The Lover by Duras. Haven't read this one, but I'm going to, and I love how short it is. This is Down the Drain by Julia Fox. This one was really popular recently. I wasn't gonna read it. I really wanted to, but then I was like, no, like I don't know, I have other things I can read. But then at my work we had a signed edition of it, and like, how iconic is that? Let me find it. Like, that's iconic. Okay, I couldn't not do it. Read it in like 2 days. It was super good. I mean, by the end of it I was just exhausted, because like, girl, this is your life. How are you not exhausted by now? Oh my god, it was so tiring. By the end I was like over it, and I was like, girl, super good. That would recommend. That is that. And then this painting my dad did in college, love it. It's like book Jenga. Next, these 2 are on the edge of the bookshelf because first of all they don't fit, but also I'm gonna bring them to the little library, switch them out for something. This one's Frankie's Place. Nothing to say about it. I didn't enjoy it, honestly, and it kept turning into a cookbook, so that was kind of throwing me off. And then Mercy, I got this one for free at the bookstore, and my mom read it and she said it wasn't very good, and I honestly just don't have a desire to read it, so I'm gonna donate that one. I found more Hemingway, so I'm gonna put those all together. Ernest Hemingway, A Farewell to Arms. Thrifted that one, haven't read it. Ernest Hemingway, The Garden of Eden. That was my mom's copy. She loaned it to me, or I might have just stolen it. Emily Dickinson poems. I adore her. She's amazing. I got this from Half Price Books a couple years ago. The Go-Between. Haven't read this. I got it at a second-hand bookstore a year ago. This Side of Paradise, F. Scott Fitzgerald. I haven't read this one, but I love Fitzgerald, and so I'll get around to it soon. I bought it at the bookstore for like $5. And I have a good amount of Fitzgerald because I was like obsessed with him at one point. So obviously The Great Gatsby, classic. Love that one. I read that one with my sister recently and it was so fun. She had to read it for school, and so we like read it. We would switch off reading it to each other and it was so fun, and like I love that story. Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is one of my favorite books ever. It's kind of like a psychological romance, which is like something you never really see, especially in like older writing. I feel like that was just, to me, I thought it was a curveball at the time. And then The Beautiful and the Damned by F. Scott Fitzgerald. My friend got this for me for my birthday, which is so sweet, and I love her. Anne of Green Gables. Love that book, but I haven't read it recently. Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. Haven't read this one, would love to read it. I went to like visit her house, like the annex, when I was in Amsterdam, and that was a really obviously moving experience. Especially like I remember all her things that were hanging on the wall, because that's really the only thing that's kind of left in there, and just to see everything that she like cut out as a young girl and put on the walls, and like what she covered up, and just that was really good. And it kind of made me think of too the things that we put on our walls, sort of thing, and like what's important to us to see every day. But I digress. I Know Like the Caged Bird Sings, Maya Angelou. Haven't read this one yet. I got those last 3 at Half Price Books. And then A Reckoning, Mary Sarton. I probably thrifted this. I don't really remember where I got that one. Haven't read it. Wow. I don't remember like any of these because I haven't seen them in so long. Disgrace by Coetzee. Haven't read it, but it looks good actually, and it's short. As We Are Now, May Sarton. Thrifted this one. I started reading it. It was really good. It's kind of about an older woman in a old folks home, and she's talking about her life. I love the concept too. Persuasion by Jane Austen. I got this one at the bookstore. It was like $5, and for some reason I've just always wanted to read this specific story, and I never had it until now, so I'm excited to read that one. Emma by Jane Austen. Got this at Half Price Books. Haven't read it yet, but I feel like I identify with Emma, you know. I have, weirdly, the only one by Jane Austen that I've read is Pride and Prejudice, and I don't even own that one. This is The Awakening by Kate Chopin. I thrifted this one a couple years ago, and then in my women's lit class they were like, yeah, we're gonna read this book, so it was perfect because I already had it. I actually really loved it, and I think when people hear the title, The Awakening, they kind of think it's gonna be like her sexual awakening in a way, which it sort of is because it's like she's having an affair, but it's more like her just awakening to life and like her own situation kind of thing. I really enjoyed it actually. It's kind of a first wave feminist book about, you know, like the nuances of being a woman in like the 18th century or 19th century, and I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it. The Virgin and the Gypsy. I got this from Half Price Books. A dazzling first read a fair. I have noticed that I do really enjoy books about affairs, and it's like I don't really think I'm ever gonna have an affair. I don't, honestly, like, I don't see the point of an affair, especially now when you can divorce. I don't know. I mean, it's complicated, but at the same time, if you want an affair, I guess go for it. But I don't know. Books about affairs are just so interesting. And I heard recently that people, when they have affairs, they most of the time they don't regret it because they feel alive. How? Why is that so beautiful? They don't regret it because it made them feel alive at that moment. Wow. It's complicated, obviously. 1,000 Splendid Suns. It doesn't have a cover, but this is from my grandma. But I had to read this in high school and absolutely loved it. I should read The Kite Runner. But The Way I Used to Be, I would probably donate this one to the little library, but I did really like it. Like, that's not to say I didn't like it. This one I probably would give 3 or 4 stars. Content warnings on this one, but really interesting. And the thing I didn't like about this, though, I like the first 1 or 3/4 of the book. Towards the end, like, it kind of started to become a romance, and I just did not think that that worked with the story at all. Like, okay, maybe we should say this. The first book of this, I think, should have just been a standalone, and now they have the second book of this series, and it makes me so annoyed because I haven't read it, but, like, if it turns into a romance, it was just not supposed to be a romance, and all the people that are trying to make it a romance are, like, kind of disregarding the whole theme of the book. It's about essay, and I just did not like how it went to a romance. I thought it was weird. I don't know. Uncomfortable. The Woman Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir. I read this. I got this at the bookstore a year ago. I read it on my vacation to Michigan. Loved it. But then I had to reread it because this is like the only book I had basically in a poetry collection. But I liked it. Maybe like 4 stars. 4 to 5. Sally Rooney. I loved this book. I read it last summer and I had a copy from the library, and then I ordered a copy off of Amazon that same day because I loved it so much, and then I had finished reading the book before I got my copy of Normal People, so I read it in 2 days. Loved it, loved the writing, loved the series too. Super good. Would totally recommend. And this cover, it's just, I love it. And it's such a good representation of the book. It's the British cover. Like, 2 people in a sardine can? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Yeah. Love in the Big City by Song Young Park. I did really enjoy this. I read this on a camping trip. I would maybe give this one away to the little library, but I enjoyed it. I think I kind of just, honestly, I think at the time, this was like a year ago, I bought it for the cover because that's just, it's just so good. Like, I mean, that's amazing. The story was good. The writing to me wasn't my favorite, but it's about a gay man in Seoul, and yeah, that's kind of that. Exploring life and sexuality and things like that. I tend to read a lot of fiction books, adult fiction, and I don't know what else to say about that. I love classics, and sometimes when it feels like when you read a classic, like you unlock a whole, feels like you unlock like a whole secret world, because so many movies and TV shows and things make subtle references to specific like classic books, and I love that, and it makes me feel like I'm in the know. This is The Razor's Edge by W. Somerset Maugham. I read this one. I got it on an online thrift books website and read it over while I was in Europe traveling. I really enjoyed it. Actually, I marked it a lot, so it must have been good. It was about kind of a social scene in the 1920s in Paris, which was good because I also traveled to Paris, and I love the 1920s. I don't know why. The picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and it was the paper, it's like the, what's it called? Mass market paperback, so cheap. I'm realizing that I am kind of cheap, but that's okay. Okay, these are amazing classic stories. Love this one. Read this in the spring, and I did highlight it. Oh my gosh, the writing was amazing. Whoa, it was so good. I need more Oscar Wilde things. I read like the one that he wrote to like his lover while he was in jail. I read that one. That's such a weird description, but it's a really good one. I just don't own it. The BFG by Roald Dahl. I forget where I got this. I must have thrifted it sometime. But this was like one of my favorite chapter books when I was little. One of the first books that I read by myself. And the BFG, that's just me, because I'm the big friendly giant too. So, love that. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I thrifted this one. I read this one probably 2 years ago, and I loved it. I should have, honestly, I dog-eared the pages that I liked, but I didn't highlight them, and it makes me so mad. I can probably read it again, but loved the writing on this one. It was amazing. Made me want to be a teacher. 9 Stories by J.D. Salinger. I thrifted this one. I would probably donate this to the little library, but I just haven't needed to yet. I loved the first story, A Perfect Day for Banana Fish, and some of the other ones I loved. And then some of them were hits, some of them were misses. Just a French dictionary, French to English dictionary. I thrifted it, and that's that. I want to learn French, and I have wanted to since literally middle school, and I just never get around to it, and I always feel like, oh, it's too late or something, which is just dumb because I'm only as young as I'll ever be. But Quiet by Susan Cain. I had to read this. This one is so dirty, and I got it like that. I got it from Thrift Books, and it's kind of gross looking, but it's about introversion. I had to read a book for extra credit for my psychology class in high school, and this is the one I read. I actually love this cover though. It's much better than the other cover, but I actually really love this one. I did have to mark this one a lot because it was for my class. It was super good though, and it really taught me a lot about myself, I think. Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I absolutely love this story. Oh my gosh, oh my god, there's stuff in it from like 3 years ago, but I love doing that, like leaving different bookmarks in it from like the time that you read it. It's like a little time capsule or something. Love this story. I'm obsessed with it, and I don't know. It's about 4 girls and their sisterhood and their girlhood, and then like growing up and becoming women. And I just love this story. It's so good. And I think when I was little I related to it a lot. Still do. Dreamwork by Mary Oliver. Love this. I really love the geese one. What's it called? The geese. Something about geese. Love that one. I was reading it yesterday too. It's just so good. She's really good. I know she's kind of like controversial, but I like her. Upstream by Mary Oliver. This one I bought at the bookstore. This one I got Half Price Books, which I was actually surprised I got it because it was new at the time. And I liked Dreamwork better than Upstream, but she's still great. I want to get Devotions by her. I would definitely suggest actually reading her poem collections if you ever go like on a camping trip or anything, because I read this one on a camping trip and loved it because you're so surrounded by nature, and her poems are so like intertwined with nature. So I read this one when I was camping, and that was really good. And then I read this one while I was in Michigan in a cabin, and that was also a really good setting for the book. Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer. I hate this cover. It's horrible, but I'll get over it because I did like the story a lot. I got this from a free little library, and it's kind of about these 3 or 4 high schoolers, I forget, that are girls, and they all have like a poet that they love, and they kind of dedicate their life to the poet. And then I actually did really find the writing pretty poetic too. So I like that one. I read that kind of at my job and while I was camping. My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. I love this book. I would definitely recommend it, and I think I got it from Target, obviously. I really loved it, and I find myself thinking about it a lot, to be honest. Especially like her whole thing about muses and just like this philosophy around being a muse, and just also her experience as like a supermodel. It was really interesting, and things about like weight, and I don't know. I really loved it. I would recommend, and it's not super long. Memoirs I think are pretty quick to read for me. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This was super good, super sad. I got it from Half Price Books. I feel like, what is there to even say about this? I just feel like if you know, you know. The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This one is actually a funny story because I bought this one at a bookstore, went all around trying to find it because this guy that I liked really liked this story, and then I read it in 2 days, and we both read like each other's favorite books, and then he kind of ghosted me, so that was that. But kind of a fun story. I read it last summer, loved it. Well, I think I loved it, but I don't know if Madeline Miller, or is that her name? Yeah. I don't know if Madeline Miller is like for me, but I know people really love her. I liked the writing, but I don't know. I don't know. It felt kind of disconnected to me. I felt like the writing was really poetic and stuff, but then something about the story just didn't hit very well. I don't know. Maybe like 3.5 stars, 4 stars kind of thing. This is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. I love this one actually. I got it from Target, and it's based off of a poem which I had to read in my women's lit class too, and I really love this one. I would recommend. I feel like it was like, there was like a specific scene that I remember that was like super graphic, and not like graphic as in like gory or anything, but just like her mental processing was so specific and vivid. Like I felt like it was happening to me, and it was kind of horrible, but like, I mean, an amazing writing, to be honest. I don't really know if I have a desire to read any of her other books, but maybe one day. Okay, on the 3rd shelf at the bottom, you can't even see. This one is where I keep like my older books that I loved when I was like in high school, but I don't really read anymore, but I can't get rid of. So this is Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Wings and Ruin, her whole series basically. Loved these in high school, was obsessed. Like basically that's kind of what got me into reading. I mean, definitely recommend. The new covers that she has out are so much better, and I see them every day and I want to buy them. But these ones, like, they're just loved, you know? Like I read this one, and then I got all my friends addicted to it, and they all borrowed my copies, and I just feel like our love is in them so much. And like they're yellowing and stuff because I read them in like 2018 or something like that. I really loved that one. I read the entire series. I looked within 20 days, and basically the first 2 within like 4 days. And they're like not small books. They're chunky. Oh, Walt Whitman, The Complete Poems. I like this book, but I don't know, it's just I have like big book fear. I'm scared. It's so big, and it's literally just poems. I used to, like during last summer, I would read 1 poem every night before bed, which that was nice. So maybe I'll start doing that again. I don't know, like why does it make me scared? It's too much, especially for poems. I get overwhelmed with all those, you know? Like a poem, I just need to read 1 and then dissect it and think about it forever. And then this is like, I just get scared. I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to read that in my entire life. I don't know. Then I have Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. Love this series. I think I honestly might like the show a little better just because these are chunky ass books, but like they're fun to read. Maybe I would enjoy like an audiobook version of them. This one I bought in high school, and then this one I found at the thrift store. I like them. Really love the concept. This is what I'm saying with fiction. Like this could almost be fantasy, you know? Maybe it's just like on the bridge between the two. But this one's about like a time traveler that goes back to Scotland, I think in the 1700s or something like that. Maybe 1500s? I don't know. Scotland. And I loved it. Usually I don't know. I do really like historical fiction, but the writing has to be well done, or else it just seems a little cheesy, and I don't know. And then the rest of the bookshelf is just like my journals from when I was younger. And then I also have like a whole little carrying case of books that didn't fit on my bookshelf, so I can show you that too. And then what am I reading right now? Oh, right now I'm reading The Lost Daughter by someone. I don't know, it's shorter. Here's the rest of my books in this thing. Red Queen, I have the entire series of these. They're gorgeous, especially when you put them next to each other, because they like slowly get darker in color. And I absolutely love that. I'm obsessed with whoever decided to do that, because that was a good choice. These are YA. I read them in like at the beginning of high school, and those also really got me into reading. Fantasy, loved it. They're YA fantasy, and then there's like some romance in them. And then it also looks like the only other ones I have left is the Selection by Kira Cass. Love these. I feel like no one's ever like hated these, I think. I also read them when I was a bit younger. It's kind of like a Bachelor situation, but like in a fantasy land. I don't know, it's YA. I loved it. It's also a lot of drama. Like, it'll keep you reading. I think most people that have read this series will read it in like 6 days, the entire series, so it just goes to show. It's super good, and really enjoyed it. So I don't know. Like, I almost am on the brink of like, should I just get rid of these? Like, I'm probably not gonna reread them. But then I'm like, no, like I should keep them. And my sister, who's like 16, I know she probably would like them. So I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. I feel like we all kind of have books like that where you just, I'm gonna keep them because I used to really love them, but then I'm like, maybe eventually I'll get rid of them. I'm just having it. Put them back in their little case and put them back in my dark closet, where they will never see the light of day again. Thanks for watching. I'm glad you got to see some of my books on my bookshelf, and I really enjoyed this. Yeah, I hope you watch some of my other videos, and thanks for listening.